Hello, everyone, and welcome to EVTN News. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's get right to it. Today, well, not today, but the Heretical Association of United States Catholic Priests announced earlier this year that the USCCB, approached the association asking it to host a virtual consultation on the USCCB's laity document. Public materials describe the event as a joint effort between the association and the USCCB, presenting it as a continuation of synodal engagement. Now, obviously, for those of you that have been following the news well, over the past several years, you'll know that the Association for United States Catholic Priests is a group of raging heretics. They support women's ordination. They talked about some really pervy stuff at their most recent meeting, and now they're going to work in conjunction with the USCCB in consultation with them on a laity document. Well, if they believe that women can be ordained, then obviously it's going to be heretical garbage, probably stuff about the priesthood of the people. So nothing good there. But that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Which, by the way, in June, the USCCB did not have a meeting. And so you'll notice I didn't do any videos. I expect that they will have a meeting in November. But that's, that I never enjoy watching the videos, but I do publish them for your information. So that you're accurately informed of what these bishops are saying. Since Francis kicked out Strickland, there hasn't been a lot of fireworks. But they also didn't video as much. They kind of scaled back on the amount of public sessions that they have. They moved more sessions to private, which certainly is probably a bit concerning, especially since a lot of the bishops were talking about unity. Basically, they didn't want anyone criticizing them, and we'll get to that because that's not. Seems as though the false effort at unity is kind of going away. So, okay. The Chinese Administration for Religious Affairs has issued today a new internet code, 18 articles, of conduct for priests and preachers of other faiths who must not engage in online activities as such. According to Asia News, the crackdown includes a ban on online preaching, teaching children, streaming liturgies, and holding online prayer meetings. Religious clergy must not collude with foreign forces, such as the Vatican, through the internet. This would be a support and oversees religious infiltration activities. Online activity has to demonstrate love for the motherland, support for the leadership of the Communist Party of China, support for the socialist system, and abide by national laws and regulations. And just last week, I talked about Pope Leo and how he appointed a communist bishop, and he merged two of the underground dioceses into the Communist Party diocese, and now we see that he's kind of working hand in hand with the communists, so that's always bad. Again, and actually the news doesn't really get any better. Oh, well, maybe at the end. Maybe there will be something hopeful at the end. I guess let's wait and see. On Saturday, September 13th, two elderly LMNOPs named Gabrielle and Mario contracted a pseudo-marriage at a farmhouse restaurant in the province of Bergamo, Italy, in the presence of Don Roberto Falconi. So Father Falconi is a priest in the Diocese of Bergamo, assigned to the sanctuary of Parello in Val Serena. The event was publicized on Facebook by the venue. The text reads, "On Saturday, our newlyweds Gabrielle and Mario chose to have a civil ceremony appointing Don Roberto a wonderful person with the courage to break the mold to officiate. The first part of the ceremony was actually a religious blessing. The love that Gabrielle and Mario share broke down barriers. God was with them. It was a magnificent experience, and we are honored to have been part of it. Long live the newlyweds and Don Roberto. For his performance, Don Roberto set up a makeshift altar and a cushion for the rings to be blessed. So here's a bishop who's acting fully within the lines of Fiducia Supplicans. But, and there is a priest who is, officiating this LMNOP ceremony. But we do have some pushback. In a recent interview with the Italian Catholic newspaper Avvenire, the African Cardinal Sarah was asked about Francis' declaration, Fiducia Supplicans, which allowed the blessing, in quotes, of LMNOP couples in certain situations. Sarah said, "I hope that the content of Fiducia Supplicans can be clarified and perhaps reformulated. The declaration is theologically weak and therefore unjustified. It threatens the unity of the Church. It is a document to be forgotten." Okay. He expressed doubt that an ancient rite like the Latin Mass could be banned. In this same interview, he said it would be like forbidding the study of St. Augustine to those who want to reflect correctly on grace or the Trinity. All right, so moving on to Cardinal Mbongo Basungu. He's from the Congo. Cardinal Fridolin Mbongo Basungu said on September 16th in an interview, "I believe that Fiducia Supplicans is a bad chapter in history, I would say, of Pope Francis. The document caused a lot of harm to the Catholic faithful and even beyond." So there's two. Okay. And Cardinal Mueller. He spoke with Diane Montagna in a wide-ranging interview published on September 17th. He said the LMNOP pilgrimage in St. Peter's Basilica desecrated the temple of God, making the Father's house a marketplace. It is an absolute scandal that this occurred. Leo XIV and James Martin both were aware that the photos of Martin's audience would be misused to suggest the Pope's alignment with anti-Christian ideologies, and many Catholic bishops opposed the document Fiducia Supplicans because it represented the wrong pastoral path and was based on a deficient and unclear understanding of natural and revealed anthropology. So there are three cardinals that I saw this week. They may not, obviously, the dates were not necessarily exactly last week, but I saw the articles last week. Three cardinals criticized the document right after this priest officiated this ceremony. So there you go. Now here's something that is a really big story, but it was buried by some of the other events that went on this week. As Vicar General of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City from 1996 to 2012, current Detroit Archbishop Weisenberger not only wielded immense influence, but used it to suppress accountability for priestly sexual abuse of minors. Investigators discovered that he routinely instructed staff to destroy after reading, oversaw the mass deletion of his own emails following his departure, and even enabled a defamation lawsuit against an abuse survivor, all while hypocritically claiming to support transparency. So Weisenberger pulled a Hillary Clinton. No surprise, but I don't know. Is this going to catch up with him? And again, it's been overshadowed by some of the other news this week. I'm not going to talk about all the secular news, but Weisenberger's in hot water after this report, and I hope it gets more attention, just because the timing of it wasn't the timing of the release wasn't the greatest, I would say, but that's not really the fault of LifeSite News. It's just how it worked. Okay, so now we're going to get to the Pope Leo interview. Now this was an interview by Crux Now, and their video quality was actually probably, I don't know, was it comparable to this live stream's video quality, or was it worse? I think it was actually worse because I'm in a carpeted room, and Pope Leo, it seemed like he was on a hardwood floor with lots of echo. So the audio was worse. And then actually, like there was something like someone's thumb was over the video at one point, like I'm doing here, you know. so so the video quality was very questionable as well. But anyway, let's get to what he said. And why did he choose Crux? Well, I think he developed a friendship when he was a bishop with John Allen, the owner and editor of Crux, and his second wife. So she got the interview, and that was that. So it goes back before he was elected pope, and kind of helping out people who helped him out, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, John Allen, yeah, very questionable character, but anyway, two of the most prominent hot button issues. This is a question. This is the question. Two of the most prominent hot button issues that came out of the Synod on Synodality were the role of women in the church and the church's approach to the LMNOPQ plus community. How will you approach them in your new role as Pope? Now, Leo does address. He did address the. I'll come up with that in a little bit. He said, so his answer to this question was, in a synodal way, for most people, certainly the understanding that the role of women in the church has to continue to develop. I think that in the sense there was a positive response. I hope to continue in the footsteps of Francis, including in appointing women at some leadership roles at different levels in the church's life, recognizing the gifts that women have and that can contribute to the life of the church in many ways. So, continuing the destructive path of Francis, he expresses his intent to continue that destruction and to continue to appoint women in the Vatican to lead disastrously, to lead departments. And well, he already appointed a woman as a secretary. So I mean, what else do you think he's going to do? He said the topic becomes a hot button issue when the specific question is asked about ordination. What the Synod has spoken about specifically was the ordination, perhaps, of women deacons, which has been a question that's been studied for many years now. There have been different commissions appointed by different popes to say, what can we do about this? Actually, I think only Francis, but anyway, I think that will continue to be an issue. I, at the moment, don't have any intention of changing the teaching of the church on the topic. As if he could. He can't. It's definitively settled. I, at the moment. So what about the next moment? How's he gonna feel about it at the next moment? Is he going to have an intention of changing teaching in the church at the next moment? He said, why would we talk about ordaining women to the diaconate if the diaconate itself has not been properly understood and properly developed and promoted within the church? I think there's millennia of understanding the diaconate, and it's just until they decided to do Novus Ordo married deacons that it became misunderstood, and now trying to destroy the diaconate into ordaining women. So the diaconate itself is not yet properly understood. That's pure Francis speak, and it's not great. Lots of question marks about his answer to that. Lots of question marks. Certainly not encouraging. Okay, so he was asked a question about LMNOP specifically. He said, I confess that's on the back of my mind because, as we've seen at the Synod, any issue dealing with the LMNOPQ questions is highly polarizing within the church. He used the phrase, a little bit different letters, as you can probably imagine, but James Martin was really proud of that statement. because he's the first pope to actually refer to it as LMNOP-Q, rather than those who are suffering from SSA, which again you can kind of figure out what that means. He said, what I'm trying to say is what Francis said very clearly when he would say todos, todos, todos. Everyone's invited in, but I don't invite a person in because they are or not a specific identity. I invite a person in because they are the son of or daughter of God. You're all welcome, and let's get to know one another and respect one another. At some point, when specific questions will come up, people want the church doctrine to change, want attitudes to change. And here's the quote. This is the big one. He said, I think we have to change attitudes before we even think about changing what the church says about any given question. So once you change your attitude, then you can change what the church says. Once you change your attitude, you can change the church doctrine. Is that what he's suggesting? That's what it seems like here. He says, I find it highly unlikely, certainly in the near future, that the church's doctrine, in terms of what the church teaches about sexuality, what the church teaches about marriage, will change. I find it highly unlikely in the near future. This is horrific modernism. Unbelievable. Doctrine cannot change. You've got to hear that from the mouth of a pope. The pope has to say that. Otherwise, what is he even talking about? I feel like his credibility has gone downhill because of this. And is he going to clarify it? I mean, if he clarifies it and says, yeah, doctrine doesn't change, it can't change, it won't change, it won't change, it can't change, it doesn't change. But he didn't say that. He said, I don't think it'll change. Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right, and then of course, those of you, many of you are fans of the Latin Mass, and so there was a question about that. And he said, there's another issue, which is also another hot button issue, which I have already received a number of requests and letters about. The question about people always say the Latin Mass. Well, you can say the Mass in Latin right now. Oh, good deflection. If it's the Vatican II rite, there's no problem. Obviously, so he's saying you can say the Novus Ordo in Latin, but how many bishops actually let their priests? How many bishops reprimand their priests for saying Novus Ordo in Latin? Anyway. He said, obviously, between the Tridentine Mass and the Vatican II Mass, the Mass of Paul VI, I'm not sure where that's going to go. It's obviously very complicated. So, again, he's deflecting, and I think it sounds like he's not planning on any immediate change. So the status quo, and as we'll see later on, it seems like I don't know if it's necessarily Leo, but it seems as though that's not a priority for him. However, there's other stuff that he was saying. He said, I do know that part of the issue, unfortunately, has become, again, part of a process of polarization. People have used the liturgy as an excuse for advancing other topics. It's become a political tool, and that's very unfortunate. I don't think so. I think, and again, what is he referring to? Is he referring to the people who use the Latin Mass as a political tool, or people who use the Novus Ordo as a political tool? Because we've seen LMNOP masses in the Novus Ordo. That's anti-Catholic. That's purely political. Or like a Mass for migrants. Is that political? Of course, I think Leo is a fan of illegal immigration, as based on what he had retweeted from National Catholic Distorter and America, the Jesuit publication, and just the beginning of this year against J.D. Vance. Or, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe a little over a year ago. But anyway, he said, I think sometimes say abuse of the liturgy from what we call the Vatican II Mass was not helpful for people who were looking for a deeper experience of prayer, of contact with the mystery of faith that they seem to find in the celebration of the Tridentine Mass. Again, we've become polarized so that instead of being able to say, well, if we celebrate the Vatican II liturgy in a proper way, do you really find that much difference between this experience and that experience? So he's saying, oh, well, people only go to the Latin Mass because some Novus Ordos are celebrated very poorly. But I think that's incorrect. Anyway, he said, I have not had the chance to really sit down with a group of people who are advocating for the Tridentine Rite. There's an opportunity coming up soon, and I'm sure there will be occasions for that. So it sounds like he has a meeting scheduled with the FSSP at some point. I don't really see who else that would be, unless it's the Institute of Christ the King, in which case they would ask for their mass, they'd ask for their faculties back in Chicago because they were suspended for following their constitution. And then here's an interesting quote. I don't like it. He said, I've heard bishops talk to me. They've talked to me about that, where they say, we invited them to this and that, and they just won't even hear it. They don't even want to talk about it. That's a problem in itself. It means we're into ideology now. We're no longer into the experience of church communion. So unity. And it sounds like he wants, to me, this seems like bishops are complaining about, modernist bishops are complaining about the FSSP not con-celebrating the Chrism Mass. And to Pope Leo, that's ideology, even though it goes against their constitution. What about the experience of church communion? It's all the priests standing around the altar at the con-celebration. Okay, so that interview was not unexpected, but still disappointing. Nothing really good in there. Lots of bad. And it sounds like he's going to continue the destruction of Francis, although he's in a nicer way. He's not as insulting as Francis. Okay, so here's a Leo bishop. Bishop Daniel Garcia was transferred from the Diocese of Monterey, California, to the Diocese of Austin, Texas, which has undergone its own mass crackdowns. So this bishop was named as Bishop of Monterey, California by Francis in 2018, and now he's being moved. So as a parting gift to the faithful of Monterey, California, he crushed the traditional mass that they had there for 17 years. And let's see, I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little bit. So he talks about, and this is like, I mean, he's already been named to be moving on. And so this might have been a condition for his promotion. Talks about Traditionis Custodes and Vatican II, and these principles must be applied that are in the motu proprio. So Novus Ordo is the unique expression of lex orandi of the Roman Rite. Yeah, okay, and a lot of garbage. Let's see. And I'm kind of just reading through here. And Francis, of course, one of his I don't know, passive-aggressive remarks. This unity I intend to establish through the Church of the Roman Rite. When praying and discerning the unique situation of this matter in our diocese, and desiring to support the Pope's goal, who's no longer Pope, of moving toward greater unity in the post-conciliar Roman Rite, I've made the decision to strengthen our unity with the universal church. So he's strengthening unity by crushing the Latin Mass. In a diocese over 210,000 Catholics, the numbers and attendance of the preconciliar Mass are very small indeed. So why pick on them? What a jerk. What an absolute disgusting excuse for a bishop. There's also the matter of the pastor there at Sacred Heart and St. Benedict's being able to give his full attention to the entire parish, rather than taking his limited time spent with a small group of individuals who are not worshiping according to the ordinary and one rite of the Latin Church. I've come to the decision for the good of the Church of Monterey not to request a dispensation for the dicastery for divine worship for the celebration of the preconciliar Mass. Okay, so I have directed Father Stephen Akers to cease celebration of the preconciliar Mass in Hollister as of October 13th, 2025. So you have a month left, and if you have any concerns about it, check with the next bishop. And of course, this false unity is pathetic, and again, what a sorry excuse for a bishop. This is this is really pathetic, and these bishops will be judged for the masses that they crush. And I can't even wish. I can't even. What do I say? I can't even say that the bishop's going to pay for his actions, because he's moving on. He did the dirty work, and that was probably the handshake agreement in exchange for his promotion. Okay, so the last story I have is kind of encouraging. Two prominent U.S. bishops have urged Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago to withdraw his plans to honor Senator Dick Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award. The senator has a decades-long record of supporting the slaughter of the unborn and attacking pro-lifers. Bishop Thomas Paprocki of Durban's home diocese issued a scathing statement. He said, "I was shocked to learn that the Archdiocese of Chicago plans to honor Senator Richard Durbin with a Lifetime Achievement Award through its Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity Immigration." He said that Durbin's record is incompatible with Catholic teaching. Okay, so Archbishop Cordileone amplified Bishop Paprocki's concerns in a statement on Twitter. He said, "I stand in solidarity with Bishop Paprocki." He added that Paprocki is correct that both clarity and unity are at risk. Again, they need to hop off this unity bandwagon, because there's no unity among these heretic bishops. We cannot have unity with them. He said, "I hope that this will be a clarion call to all members of the body of Christ to speak out to make clear the grave evil that is the taking of the innocent human life." Obviously different bishops have different priorities. Paprocki and Cordileone tend to have Catholic priorities, and Cupich tends to have anti-Catholic priorities, you can clearly see. Too bad that these bishops didn't call out Cupich for supporting James Martin or for crushing the Institute of Christ the King in his archdiocese. I'd like to hear more of that, but this is a good start, and I think it might be the beginning of the end for Cupich, because he's always been controversial, but this is kind of icing on the cake, and it just seems like it's a provoking people for provoking people to see what will happen. So anyway, that is it. Okay, and let's see here. We must stay strong. That's why we need to encourage our Eastern Catholic brethren. Oh, got a troll. Okay. Traditional Catholicism will always fail. All right. Well, you can go to your clown mass, and that's, no one's prohibiting your clown mass. In fact, there's plenty of rainbow masses to find. So I don't know. I mean, I guess, traditional Catholics stand with the Catholic faith, and modernists stand against the Catholic faith. It's pretty obvious to me. And so I don't really know what he's getting at, but that's pretty pathetic, honestly. Really sad to see, but I do get troll comments from time to time, and it's anyway, pretty sad. Okay, well, this has been EVTN News. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.